Well, we are in this now, this season after Christmas, the celebration after Christmas, and I think we're probably in the recovery mode. As I said, lots of things going on, lots of emotions, lots of feelings around it all, lots of memories around it all of it, all kinds of things around it, and so you can exhaust yourself just kind of attending to all of those things. And yet for people of faith, for families of faith, it is an opportunity to just kind of step back and reflect on this, the meaning of this time. So we see in this season who it is that Jesus is. So Jesus, the Son of God, who it is that he is as God, born in human flesh. So we learn about who he is, but we also learn about who we are, about our identity, what it means for us to be us. And so this amazing truth that God becomes human flesh so that we can be part of the family of God. We can be his children. So the way that Eugene Peterson puts it in this translation, it says, he came to his own people, but they didn't want him. But whoever did want him, who believed he was who he claimed and would do what he said, he made to be their true selves, their child of God selves. So this idea that we are his children, we are his children, and that reveals to us that we're part of a family and have this divine lineage in us. So there's value to us, to who we are. And oftentimes we struggle with that. We struggle with, do I have value? Am I important to anyone? I was, so for Christmas shopping, I went, most of my shopping I did online. And that is, that's just a really marvelous thing. You can just find it on the screen there, and the mail guy brings it to you. You don't even have to go out. I don't have to take a shower, do nothing. It's just, they just bring it to you. What a deal. But not everything could I do that. And so I did have to go to a couple stores. And I went to one particular store. And so noticed, on the main floor, so they had this place for jewelry and fragrances. And so you could go up to the fragrances and you could pick up a bottle and kind of look at it and see if then sample it, see if that's what you wanted, or go over to the jewelry section. There's a big jewelry section of things that you could touch and feel, and you could try them on, look in the mirror, see if you liked how they looked, all of those things. And so, that's good. That was good. You could touch it and try it, but I noticed that they had another section that was all behind glass, and the cabinets were locked, right? And so then when you look at the prices, you realize that the ones that you can touch and feel and try on, those are all cheap. Are less expensive, right? They're the less expensive ones. When you want the expensive ones, then you gotta talk to somebody, and they've got a key, and they unlock the glass counter, and they show you the stuff. It says something about value, right? If they had the expensive stuff out where everybody could just touch it and nobody was watching over it, it'd be gone pretty quick. But the cheap stuff, they don't really care so much. And so if somebody sticks it in their pocket or purse and walks away, it's not going to be any big deal for them. It all has to do with value. And so that actually applies to us, doesn't it? So if we see ourselves as cheap, if we see ourselves as having no value, then people can paw all over us, and it's no big deal. Take care of it. You get all kind of snaggled, and if we see other people as cheap, then we don't really. We use them for whatever it is that we want, but we can discard them. When the fashion changes, and if some turn up missing, it's no big deal. We just kind of get on with things. If we see ourselves as having little value, and if we see other people as having little value, it determines how we treat them and how we treat ourselves. But if we see ourselves as having tremendous value, that also, it will determine how we treat ourselves and others. And that's true whether we're talking about our kids and as we're raising them up, teenagers, and whether they see themselves as cheap or whether they see themselves as highly worthy, or if it has to do with elderly people who are in nursing homes or in our homes. It has to do with, do we see them as valuable or not valuable? So now in the gospel, we hear about Jesus coming, and we hear about that Jesus, through Jesus, we're made of kind of the divine lineage. We are his children. It doesn't matter what our bloodline says. We are his children, and we are of royal blood. And so we have tremendous value to him. And so this opportunity for us to realize that as we step into this being children of the Most High King, that is a destiny for us. It invites us to walk it out, to treat ourselves and treat others like they're royalty. And so that's a process. We've got to think through what that means for us to experience a calling. Identity is destiny. Who we are determines what we do and where we go. And so when we hear the Christmas story and we let it soak in and it changes things for us, it changes us. It changes what we do, and it changes how we look at the other people who are around us. I love this. There was an article I stumbled on a couple weeks ago, and I've been waiting until this weekend to be able to talk about it. It's about this woman. Her name is Sarah Culberson. So she's a biracial. She was raised as a biracial little girl. She was adopted when she was about 1 year old, and she was adopted by this white couple who were living in West Virginia. The dad was a university professor in this little town, and her mom was there. She had a profession. They had a couple other biological kids, but she clearly didn't look like, the rest of them. And so then this question of, so who am I? Where did I come from? Who am I? And so she would, as a little girl, as she grew up, and then as a teenager, she would wrestle with that. So who am I? And finally, as a teenager at 18, she had a crisis. As in their high school, they were talking about adoption and that there were kids that weren't wanted. And what did that mean? And so that was all new to her. It created this tremendous anxiety in her. So with her parents, she started looking into, where did I come from? What's my lineage? And if you've ever been with anybody who's gone through that process, it can be a really long time and sometimes never successful. You can never find out who you came from. But 10 years later, she got a phone call. And that phone call was from her biological uncle. And he was in Sierra Leone. And so on that phone call, he told her a little bit about her lineage and where it is that she came from. She was born of the Mendi tribe in Bumpe, Sierra Leone. And she was the child of the paramount chief of the tribe. So that's a big deal. So you're the daughter of the big chief and of the village, but not just the village, but that tribe was the premier tribe of that section of Sierra Leone. She was actually, so her father was the chief of a third of the population of Sierra Leone. And she was the princess of Sierra Leone. And so then if you know anything about Sierra Leone, you think, so just a tremendous wealth, bounty they have diamond mines, and gold and minerals, all kinds of wealth in Sierra Leone. And so you just kind of think of, so I'm a princess, and all of these wonderful things that I can be. And then she learned a little bit about the history of Sierra Leone. And she found out that because of the wealth in the country, there was tremendous corruption. And there were political intrigues that took over, and revolutionaries that deposed the natural leaders, and rebel groups that 2 years earlier had come in and they took boys, and they trained them as killers in the army. And they went through and brutally massacred thousands of people. And there were children who were mutilated through that process. And so when she went, she saw people that were pretty devastated. She saw children walking on crutches and without limbs, without clean drinking water, and no education, and no civil rights for women. She said, in this article, she says, "My only guidance of what a princess was what I saw in the movies. But it's really about responsibility. It's about walking in my great-grandfather and grandfather's footsteps and what they've done for the country. I realized that my role as a princess is to keep things moving forward in the country." She had developed a career as an actress and dancer here, but she put all of that aside, and she took on the mantle of a princess in Sierra Leone and worked to put together funds in this country that could go back to her home country, and that could build schools and could build healthcare facilities that could provide clean drinking water, and that could provide medical necessity supports for women. It would have been easy for her to be able to learn that she was a princess, and what a wonderful opportunity it was to kind of soak it up and take all of the glory that came with it. But then when she saw how difficult things were and that there was no glory there for her, it had been so easy for her just to say, "Oh, that's interesting. I'll put that on my resume and move on." But that's not what she did. Her identity was her destiny. Knowing who she was changed the direction of her life and how it was that God used her from that time on. This is now the celebration of Christmas. Christmas for us doesn't end with Christmas Day. It's 12 days, right? And then we go into Epiphany, and it takes that amount of time to learn what does it mean for us to soak in the truth of Christmas, of who Jesus is, and then also who we are. Because as we discover who we are, then we discover what our destiny is, how we live it out. It makes all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. And so we come to worship. We come to learn. We come to discover. We come to get strength so that we can carry it out. Amen.